question is illegal immigration the biggest problem we face? Now, before you guys answer that, I want to play this clip, and I'm gonna reach out to this young woman. She's a journalist, and see if she come on my platform here because she was spot on.
Illegal immigration and utilizing our tax dollars and our resources to fund and support illegal immigrants. I'm not talking about people who came here with papers. I'm talking about illegal immigrants, 11 million that have crossed, 11 million and counting, that have crossed the border since Biden and Harris. I'm talking about the resources of tax dollars that have gone from American citizens to support their housing, to support getting them food. I do not believe that we as Americans, specifically Black Americans that are descendants of slavery, should have our tax dollars utilized for illegal immigrants that have come to this country without going through the proper immigration process that we have, and get our money and get funded and get $9,000+ in Chicago for rent, and be able to get more money in food stamps and SNAP and TANF and all of these benefits, and be able to utilize our tax dollars to get free legal service. That's happening right in Indianapolis, in my own city. Absolutely not. One, the first step to making America not a sovereign nation is to bust open our borders like a bag of chips. I think that that is completely wrong. Two, I think it's also completely wrong for us to basically, it feels like you're abandoning the citizens and supporting the illegal immigrants.
If you want to assess Donald Trump as a failure, his fundamental policy proposal that he ran on was to build a wall. So whenever we hear this racist, sexist foolishness from him, we should be very clear that the fundamental thing he said he would get done when he talked about Mexican mini rapists and all these other things was that he would build a wall. Didn't happen. The rhetoric right now around immigration that he's trying to highlight is a framing of what? That our cities are getting worse, even though everything from an economic standpoint, in terms of growth, in terms of cost of living, what's happening in your pockets have actually gotten better. We have better growth in our communities by actually helping our immigrant brothers and sisters. The data actually to the immigration question is, how are we making this a policy substantive conversation rather than a rhetoric?
All right, so I totally disagree with that man. They are making it worse. They are putting the illegal migrants in poor cities, sanctuary cities, Black cities, taking low-wage jobs. 70% of Black adults make $37,000 or less a year. Those are Black jobs, hashtag Black jobs, and they're a majority in low wage, which means they're going to be the first ones to be replaced by the illegals. Real quick, Street Media, hi, introduce yourself.
How y'all doing? Everybody on the panel, Street Media TV, George Macon.
It's been forever. I stopped asking you, George, like ever since last year, because you've been always busy.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to have you on the panel tonight. So I want to get you guys' reaction to that video clip. I'm gonna start with you, George, and then everybody else, jump
in. With this subject, I'm here in Philly, right? And they talk about Chicago, New York City, but they're not talking about Philadelphia. I'm talking about, man, listen, I can show you. I was with my wife. This is right here is an image of them having their little thing in South Philly. They're not coming over here broke. They coming over here with cars, money, cartels. I'm talking about, this is in South Philly, down on Broad Street. They was like, I'm talking about, it was thousands of them. They just came out, right? And the thing is, you have some of them that come and they work on your houses, the Guatemalans and stuff like that. But no, when you down South Philly now, down by the waterfront, they ain't that's not the ones that come work on your house. These the ones playing Mexican drill rap. They got the low rider cars. I'm like, yo, wait a minute. These ain't the immigrants they said it was. Like, where these people coming from? And like around the corner from my house, where the kids used to play in the playground, they done took the whole playground over. Like and on the East Coast, we didn't see no Mexicans. It was Blacks and Puerto Ricans. Now it's Mexicans and Guatemala. They everywhere. Right? I'm talking about everywhere. So my thing is, when I hear these conversations now, I don't really talk about the Republican Party because our community never supported them for the last 60 years. They're irrelevant to me. The argument is towards the Democratic Party. And the younger people now, they're starting this younger generation is asking questions. And the Democrats is not used to the younger people asking questions. They're asking, why is the same buildings all dilapidated? Why are we being gentrified out of our communities? You want us to go vote, but the communities, we can't even afford to live here no more. So I don't think that we even got a right to bring an argument to the Republicans because we haven't supported them. Our argument is to the Democrats. So that's just my take on it.
I think the younger people are asking questions because of technology and social media, because we would have never known that these people are getting these resources, I feel, if it wasn't for social media and people using the power of their phone to film and speak out against these things. But to answer your question, I do agree. In Florida, we're very blessed because although we do have a big melting pot here, we've kind of been I want to say protected from the mass migration because our governor has pretty much shipped them out of state. And I know it was a very controversial thing that he did at the time, but I'm grateful for it because we don't have these issues here. I mean, we already are a melting pot, but at the same time, we're not taking a large group of these migrants in like Ohio and Philadelphia. But I do think it's a national security issue. Number one, these people that are coming in, they're not being vetted. They're not going through the proper protocol to wait their turn to come in. So we really don't know who these people are. And number two, it's taking away resources, like Street Media said, that could be going to American citizens.
Well, the younger people here, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think in 2016, a brief history lesson here, when Trump went on stage and he's called Mexicans R's and killers and all this stuff, the Republican agenda normally, if you go back to when Roger Stone, who was actually one of Trump's strategists, when he was with Richard Nixon, he said, hey, you can't call these guys an N-word anymore. You got to call them criminals. The Republican agenda was normally to go after black people to try to get the white vote out. So Trump changed the strategy with Republicans to target Hispanics. And basically, I think this is a bipartisan issue. But to all the black people out there, and as Dana pointed out, the average amount of income is $37,000. Let's change the low income and let's make the black jobs doctors, lawyers, scientists, politicians, CEOs. Let's get a black Elon Musk. Let's get a black Jeff Bezos. Let's change the identity, what it means to be a black job.
Okay.
Well, my question to that is, I hear that, me, a person that actually work with children every day, to me, that's like crazy talk, and respectfully, because being black in one of the blackest cities in America, that's been heavily democratic. That's not what they push. Most of these so-called black elites that come around every election time, they're not accessible. Young black kids don't see these people. They're not the ones coming back to help redevelop the kids at all. And then when it's election time, they come around with this kind of talk. But in Philadelphia, when we was averaging 600 homicides for the last 4 years, none of them was around. The people on the ground that's asking the questions, when we ask questions now, oh, you must vote for Trump. No, Trump is irrelevant to me. I'm asking, my mama took me down and told me to vote Democrat since I was a child. So when we asking these questions and we're saying, wait a minute, these policies, the same thing they did in 1980, when they had the largest immigration in the history of America, you see the same playbook being ran again. And right after 1980, 4 years later, you come into the crack era. You had all these infusions of all these Jamaicans and Mexicans and all these people. It's the same thing over again. And we sitting there, those of us that know better, we're going to sit here and watch it. I'm not trying to hear none of that Democratic jargon no more. If you don't have something specific for us, y'all had y'all time. There's no way that anybody that's supporting the Democratic Party can come up here and tell anybody with some sense that's from the black community, well, we just need to go vote here. My grandma didn't die or fight just for us to have a right to vote. They had an agenda. The civil rights movement and all those different movements had an agenda behind it that was supposed to be specifically for us. Y'all going around now talking about people of color. My grandma may never mention no goddamn people of color. So y'all are very disrespectful to the people that was there before us. Any of y'all that even mentioned that people of color, man, I don't respect none of y'all because y'all don't respect our elders, because that's not what they fought for. All those federal laws that's on the books that were supposed to be for us, y'all done sold it out.
Street Media TV. Go ahead, Gavin. My bad.
Yeah. Let me just say first off, to the brother from Philadelphia, Street Media, unrelated to the conversation. I just want to say he was born in Philadelphia, but Frankie Beverly belongs to New Orleans. I just want to point that out.
Listen, okay, wait, let's table that to the end. This is
light in the mood, but
let's get
light in the mood. But let me just say that I just wanted to point that for the record. But
Car and Driver compared 8 different SUVs. And who do you think ranked number 1?
Let me say this to what the brother and really what he is saying, I agree with. Dr. Claude Anderson, Gray, you mentioned something about where we want the black Elon Musk and so forth. We've had, and I'm sure you know, black millionaires and billionaires. We have black billionaires currently. One, the brother who, and his name escapes me, but he was the brother that paid for the Morehouse College students' tuition that graduated that year. There have been black billionaires and millionaires we've had before, black businesses, black business owners. The thing that has happened, of course, sometimes, and what we fail to do is keep that legacy going and pass down to our children. You know, you look at, for instance, we talk about the world of music. Thank you. Someone said the name, Robert Smith. You know, Town Records. Barry Gordy had a legacy with that. He ends up selling it. Def Jam, which was Russell Simmons had in part. That's sold. You know, Ebony and Jet magazine, which is black press, something that was very important to us. You know, that was been sold off. So we've had these things in place. We've had, you know, people like Dr. Claude Anderson who laid out platforms and telling people in different cities, hey, why don't you black men, black women own your own businesses, have your own gas companies and gas stations in your neighborhood. If you look at Detroit, I'm giving you an example with that. In his book, he talked about how Detroit was, which is predominantly area was 90% black or so forth, and only less than 1% Arabs from the Middle East, yet they owned 90% or controlled 90% of the gas stations in the city. So the point that I'm making with that is we don't ever get together. We don't have, to what the brother's saying, we don't have any generational legacy that's being passed down to our children, and they're suffering as a result of it. Because if you look at whites, especially the history of racism in this country, the wealthiest families, you still hear the name Ford. You still hear the name Rockefeller, Rothschild, DuPonts, all of these families that have passed money, old money, down to the next generation. And that's what rotates, you know, sadly, that's what makes the world go around is money. That's what moves things. If you can't go anywhere, you can't travel without money, you can't eat. So we got to learn not only to have these black billionaires and millionaires, which we obviously can get, but we also got to know how we can help create the next generation and move on, and how they can give back. And give back may not necessarily mean just giving their monies, but helping at least the other ones step up and realize to take over when they're old and gone and can't do it anymore.
Nora, you want to say something? Because some people in the chat saying Nora don't ever talk. Let Nora talk, as if we keeping Nora quiet.
Oh no, I mean, I said what I had to say about it. I'm agreeing with that. Everyone has really good points, and I understand street media where you're coming from. I totally get that. We need to respect and be reverent to the past generations, but we got to work together. I mean, that's really the moral of this, and I'm in agreement with you that it's time to get off the plantation.
Also, because that, you know, when I have these panels or whatever, and just the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about, you know, Republican versus Democrat or Kamala versus Trump. But to Gray and street media point, we need to start talking about the history of the Democrat Party then, civil rights movement then, and now, you know, and their flaws. Like, how about, you know, maybe eventually just dedicate, whether it's an hour, deconstructing the Democrat Party. You know, forget comparing Harris and Trump or Republican and Democrat. Let's talk about, especially on a local level, because which me and Nora, you know, we were saying earlier, we both agree what's more important is voting locally. There's no sitting on a couch. But a lot of places when you go down ballot and you see who else is on that ballot, where you live at, particularly Black people, they're all going to be and how it's affecting in each areas because we all live in different states. And then two, I want us to deconstruct the Democratic Party. Are you down for that, George?
Yeah, that's important. Can I say
Can
one
you-
thing?
yeah.
I'm gonna say this, right? And like I said, I'm in Philadelphia, one of the blackest cities in America, which was probably one of the richest history of Black people in America, coming from the South to the North. The first Black Renaissance was Philadelphia, before you had the Harlem Renaissance, right? From 1941 to 1952 was the last time we had a Republican mayor. Since 1970 until now, we've had over 4,500 homicides in this city, all under the Democratic Party, right? When I make the statement that I don't care about Trump, my argument is towards the Democrats because I've been raised in a Black city where we religiously supported the Democratic Party. I'm watching, I think it's insulting when Black people tell us, right, especially those of us that live in Black cities, we've been gentrified out of our communities. We don't have Republican people, right? We have to start looking at 50 years of history and where are we? Where did we start from and where are we? It's imperative that we do that. And for us to not want to do that, I got to question some of y'all, like who paying y'all? Because this is crazy. So I'm not being disrespectful, but I talk passionate because where I come from, like it's horrible out here in these communities, right? And lastly, I'll say no, the Democrats didn't give us. We didn't have the right to vote through them. It was our resiliency. We had executive orders that's been on the books and laws that's been on the books since 1875. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party never enforced it. So state law was able to oppress us. That's where your Jim Crow, because there shouldn't have never been a Jim Crow based off the federal laws that was on the books. And the Democratic Party sat by and watched that. So like when we have these conversations, we got to know what we're talking about. And the sad part is when some of us ask questions, y'all talk to us as if we're not studying, like we don't know what we're talking about. I got kids. I have to know what I'm talking about. I live in a Black city. So I don't want to talk about the Republicans. I want to talk about a reassessment of us under the Democratic Party since 1970 up until now. In Detroit, Philadelphia, Chicago, all these cities. That's what we should be talking about.
And if I could just say just one quick thing for the record, Brother Gray, you do know that in the 1800s, the Republican Party was created to fight the expansion of slavery. And there were Black Republican senators and congressmen during Reconstruction who were Republican. The Democrats were the ones that were against that. You are aware of that, right, brother?
Yes, Gavin. Abraham Lincoln is my favorite president of all time. I mean, he freed the slaves. So I know there was a party switch around the time of Franklin D. Roosevelt with the New Deal. And Street Media TV, I think your name was George. I know, I feel like he was talking to me. With
I'm talking to all Democrats that talk that way, not just you, my brother.
All of them.
Listen, it's in my family. My aunties and them talk like you.
Of course. So, but I'm gonna say this because I mean, I listen to rap, so I see a lot of the the hood politics, on YouTube.
That's what I'm talking about right there.
What do you mean?
Because you said, listen to what I'm saying. I don't even think that you believe is disrespectful, but listen, hear me out. Yeah. When you use that type of jargon and hood politics in the conversation we have it now, it's actually insulting, as if we don't have intelligence enough to be on the level that y'all are to speak. We got eyes, we can read. We can come from the hood, we can read. We're urban nerds, my brother. So like when we're having those type of conversations and y'all disagree, to use the term hood politics is actually disrespectful to us.
What I'm saying is this: with law enforcement, right? Law enforcement isn't proactive; they're reactive. So you're saying like people get murdered. So the law enforcement can't go out there and like get people preemptively. A crime has to be committed. Gavin's a lawyer; he maybe can expand on this. A crime has to be committed, and then they react. And you said it's just these big Black cities, Chicago, Philadelphia.
You missed my point, though, my brother. You missed the point I was saying. What I was saying was not the point you're making. Since 1970, since 1952 in Philadelphia, we've been under Democratic rule. What I'm saying is we need to do a reassessment Because in these cities, like I said, it's been over 4,500 homicides. We're being gentrified out under the leadership of the Democratic Party. I don't even want to talk about Republicans because we was never taught to support them. Republicans don't come to my community. This is a Democratic city. So what I'm saying is when we finally stand up and say, wait a minute, listen, Mom, I got some questions. You can't say, well, that's hood stuff. You have to answer the questions.
Well, see, let me say this, and I want to start ending the showdown. Because Nora and Gray, you guys are in Florida. You guys don't really see a lot of influx of illegals right now.
No. And that's a
No,
good
we
point
don't.
because my mom is a Democrat and she's very upset that I'm voting for Trump. But what I explained to her is we live in a red state, in a red county. We're not being affected by this. I will say shouts out to Philadelphia. My son's father lives up there and I was up there, and the migrant in New Jersey, Philadelphia, he serves in the military. But anyways, the migrant crisis is rough up there. So I know you guys are really feeling it. We're not feeling it like that here in Florida. We don't have these cards being given out to people. So I think I love Gray, but I think we're not being impacted by it. That's the difference.
So it's a different type of commentary because George is experiencing firsthand. I'm in Ohio. I am kind of like in a blue city, but this is a red state.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, let me say this. You could be in certain blue cities to where they are pro Kamala and pro open border, but they don't want them in their community. And these are white liberals. So I'm in that part of the blue area, which is amazing because they got the Harris Waltz signs in their lawn. I do want to get a Trump sign, but my father, he voting for Harris, so he probably get upset. But I love it when I walk my dog and he walk on someone's lawn and he pisses on the Harris Waltz sign. And my camera is never camera ready to take a screenshot because he does it just out the blue. But one day I'm gonna catch him and I'm gonna take a picture. But every time he do, I was like, good dog. He literally he goes on the lawn, he walks because he likes to sniff the grass, and I guess he likes to pee with signs and fire hydrants and poles, and he lifts his leg up and pee right on the sign, and I love it. So, but these people here, they're voting so liberal and blue, they don't want the illegals in their neighborhood. So it's a difference talking to someone who literally experiencing it in your kid's school, in your neighborhood, as opposed to people who are voting blue or, or even live in a Democrat city, but you're in a red state and you don't experience it firsthand. It's a different type of thing. So it's good conversation. So I definitely want us to continue this next week, Wednesday. I would love to have all you guys back if you're available. I did put the links to the